Hey y'all, it's Steve, Hobo with Wood Chips, and this is going to be a video on walking you through a step-by-step process on doing the firmware upgrade for your Cubiko. They have some instructions online, but mine was missing an important step, or I've got other issues with my Cubiko as well, and you may too. So it's important that you watch this start to finish, because you may run into the same roadblocks I ran into, and I want to show you how to avoid them or how to get around them. Stay tuned. Alright, so I've got the Cubiko, and I really enjoy my Cubiko. Hey y'all, I'm interrupting this just to give you a heads up. I show you in the video at the end of this how to identify which version of the firmware you currently are using. I strongly recommend that you watch this video in its entirety before attempting your firmware upgrade. Watch this from beginning to end. Then if you need to go back and watch it again and follow along as you do your upgrade, your firmware upgrade, do that. But don't attempt to do your firmware upgrade the first time watching this, because there may be steps in here that are necessary or not, depending on what symptoms you're experiencing with your Cubiko. So with that said, back to that other guy. Wait a minute. No, that was me. All right, back to our continued programming, our regular scheduled programming. When I first opened it, I was able to get it up and going, and I did, well, this coin tray right here was my very first project doing something with the Cubiko, and it turned out really, really nice. I was really pleased with that, and so I knew that it was going to be a great tool for me to learn to do CNC work. But I was struggling. And I'm using MillMage software to control the CNC. I'm not using Candle or any of the other expensive software programs. I'm using MillMage. And I'm a novice. I'm a beginner, but I catch on pretty quick. And I thought I understood the concepts with where you're zeroing your project, but I was having problems with the machine not going where I wanted it to go. It would not respond the way I wanted it to respond consistently. And I finally figured out that if I started fresh, if I powered the machine off, turned the machine on, used my software, not the touchpad, wrong screen. So I learned if I used the touchpad to make the controls, then it seemed to conflict with once I started controlling it with the software. So I would home the machine, completely reset everything. I would power the machine off, back on, and then use my software to move the machine to home position. Then I could do a complete multiple operations. I could do 2 or 3 different operations. I could do a pocket, an inlay, and then a cleaning pass. 3 different actual operations, and then the machine would come to a stop. There's where I started having problems. From that point on, if I told it to go to XY, well, it goes instead of where it should go, it's going off, a lot of times off the work area. It would crash the machine. Somehow it was losing its positioning. And so I'm like, okay. But the way I got around that, shut it down, power it back up, send it to home with the software, and then it was ready to go again, all reset until the next operations come to a stop. Then it had to be powered down, reset, sent to home with the software, and then I was back on track again. Well, I found online that Genmitsu had a firmware update, and I'm going to show you now how you find that. wrong camera again. We'll get in the swing of things here in a minute. If you just go to Google and you Google Cubiko, if you Google Cubiko, you'll get one of the first responses should be the Cubiko CNC router. You can click on that from Sainsmart. And that's going to open up the home page to Cubiko in the Sainsmart website eventually. Got a slow connection today. Once that populates, you need to go to the resource page. Resources will have a drop down. You just come over here, resources, and click on CNC machine resource. And wait for that to populate. Then come down to Cubiko. And then at the very bottom, Cubiko Firmware Update Guide. Now, this is, well, we're just all over the place today. Today is Friday, and it feels like a Monday. So this is a firmware where you can go and download it, and it also has a guide there, but either there are some important steps missing, or I have additional problems with my CNC that I want to show you in case you have the same issue too. So you'll want to stick around for this entire video, because their step-by-step guide did not work for me at all. So let's go back to the guide. There, we got it. And if you click on this, here it comes down and tells you, right now, it most likely your machine has got the 43.1 firmware, version 43.1, and you need to download the Cubiko Firmware version 44. So you click there to download, and I've already downloaded it, so it should be in my download folder. Right there, there's my zip folder. If you click on it and open it up, it brings you to your Cubiko Firmware folder. Click on it again, double click, and it brings you to two different firmwares. One for the controller, offline controller, and the other one is for the motherboard. So there are two separate pieces of firmware that you need to update when you do this. And you have to do them independent from one another. And in their instructions, they tell you to install it, then go on to your thumb drive, erase what was on there, then go and download the second one, and install it one at a time. So in your clamshell case that came with your Cubiko that has your hold downs, all your tools, your Allen wrenches and your crescent wrench or your open end wrenches, there's also a USB thumb drive. Looks like that. And the USB thumb drive also has a micro SD card in the very top of it. And I'll bring this up close. If you look at this, you've got, there you go. You've got a clear plastic raised riser there that protects the SD card. That SD card, that black chip, if you'll notice there, you can see all black. If you look here, you can see the gold through that clear. So the the micro SD card only goes in one way. And that's going to be important because you're going to be taking that in and out. You're going to insert this into your PC or your laptop or whatever and transfer those files from your downloads to here. Then you got to pull the micro SD card out and put it in several different slots in here in different locations, do each individual upgrade, but you have to do it in steps. All right. So step one is you click and download that version 44 firmware. Is in your download folder or wherever you've designated your downloads to go to. You're going to need to click on it, double click it, unzip it. There'll be two folders in there. One for your offline controller, one for the motherboard. You're going to open each of those folders. And then you'll find your actual firmware. So here, if I go back again, there's my zip folder. double click, oh, and then double click, and there's both of those. I need to do one of these at a time. So and they tell you to do the controller first. Upgrade your controller firmware first. So I'm going to double click that again and open it once more. And now I have my firmware for the offline controller. And I need to move this to my thumb drive. Now I'm going to walk you through this as elementary as possible. So for those who are familiar with thumb drives and micro SDs, be patient with me because you do want to see the roadblocks that I run into. But I want to make sure that everybody understands how to do this, including those who have never messed with these before and have no idea what's going on. So you're going to insert this into your thumb drive, your USB port. You're going to insert the thumb drive into your USB port on your PC or your laptop or your Mac or whatever. Hopefully you know how to identify where it's at on your PC or your device. Because knowing the location of this once you insert it into your USB is crucial because you need to copy this one folder and bring it into this one. So I'm going to go plug this in to my PC, and it's a little bit out of sight, so give me a second while I get this plugged in. And of course, always I do it backward the first time. There we go. All right. So now I've got that that thumb drive plugged into my USB. So, and when I did, it's going to open up my USB F drive. There's the drive. So if I go back, there we go, double click it, showing the folder's empty, but it's not empty. I guess it's still reading. For some reason, my computer is slow as molasses today. I need to reboot, but we're gonna push through. Let's see. Do I scroll up? No. Yes. No. Scroll up over here. No. I don't know why it's showing to be empty. That is perplexing. Because here it's not. It's not empty. It's half full. I'm telling it to read it, and it's not reading anything. You gotta love the joys of technology and try and do stuff and record it live. Well, you get to see all the screw-ups and the snafus and the headaches along the way. Because I should be seeing data. It shows there's data in there. There's nothing populating off of this drive. We're going to press forward. I'm going to split the screen with this and my downloads, and the way I do that is I can take and drag this down so it's down here in the middle of the screen, and now drag it over here halfway to where it shows me splitting the screen in half. If I release, it goes there, and then I find the one that I want, and I won't. See, this is the firmware there. All right, so there's my firmware for my offline controller. All I need to do is just click on it. I'm pressing and holding the left click mouse button and I'm just going to drag it over here and release it, and that copies it and puts it in here. So now that firmware for that offline controller is on my F drive, my USB F drive. Now, you don't want to just pull this out of the computer. You need to eject it from your computer. And over here on this drive, there is a button right there that says eject. Now, it's not like the 1980s or 70s cassette player where you hit an eject button and it's going to kick that drive out. It just unlinks it from your computer. It's not going to physically move anything. You're going to eject that thumb drive, and then once it says it's been ejected, you can now unplug it. So I'm going to click eject, and I got a message that said it's safe to remove. So now I've removed that thumb drive. I've got the thumb drive here. Now I need the micro SD card out of it because that's where the information's actually at. But before I pull that out and put it into the controller, I need to prep the machine. The Cubiko has to be completely powered down. Now, I'm gonna turn my machine on. So you can see it's all lit up. Everything's turned on. And I'm gonna switch cameras now to the controller. And you can see the profile of the machine. Get this around here. That'll work. And then swap. So now you can see the reflection from the lights. The lights are on up here. This is powered up. I've got power here. Now it's crucial that you have this thing powered down before you do your firmware. So I'm going to press and hold the on off button and turn the machine off. You're seeing the LED lights go out. They're no longer on up here. But I've still got power on my controller. I don't know if that's correct or not. Doesn't seem like it should have power there right now. I've asked Sainsmart for some feedback on whether that's normal or do I have a faulty control board. So I tried doing, and this is where they don't discuss this in their step-by-step guide, but with this still on, the power still on the controller, and I put the SD card in there and then power this machine on, nothing happened. No firmware updates took place. I try, and I'm going to switch cameras again. I'm going to physically unplug the power from the power source, the power supply. So I've got the power supply unplugged, but I've still got power on the control board. And it's not residual power. If I move this up and down, you can see calculations, settings, Wi-Fi, LED. I can still actually, move around the menu. There's power on the control panel there. I did long presses to try and see if that would power it off. Wouldn't do it. It's unplugged from the power source. I wouldn't do it. And I got to think, well, the only thing left is the USB cord for the connection to the power or to the computer, like a printer cord. It's just a USB connection cord. When I unplug it, my power goes off on my controller. Now, I don't know if that's correct or not, and if it is correct, it's not in the documentation about how to do the firmware update. That's why I don't think it's correct. But if I've got this problem, one or two of you may have the same issue too. So to get your control board completely powered down, you need to power off the machine and then unplug your USB cable. The power supply is irrelevant. Once you power down, unplug your USB, everything should go dark. Then you need to pull out that little micro SD card, and on this USB thumb drive, it's just held in there with friction. There's no lock, no spring lock, nothing like that. You don't push it in to eject it. You just simply grab it with your fingernail and slide that out. And when you slide it out, that comes out, and you've got just an empty slot there for the SD card, and you've got this little bitty jewel right here. That's your micro SD. That's the solid black side, and then the piece with the gold and the memory places on it. That is going to insert into your control panel with all power off. So it's completely off, and you're like, well, where does it go? Well, if we pull that out and look right there on the side, there is the SD card slot for inserting the micro SD card. And the way it looks like it's going to go in, it looks like it's going to go with the gold part of the micro SD facing outward. So I've got the micro SD facing out, or the chip, the gold chip, and then just press that in, and this will click and lock. So you press it in until you hear click, and that locks it in place. So now the SD card is on or in the control panel. At this point, I'm going to put my USB cord back into the Cubiko, and that should power up the control panel again. And if you need the firmware, you should see it automatically begin to upload the firmware. You'll start to see a status, it'll come up, power up, and then you'll see a status bar populate. And you'll watch for that status bar to completely fill, and then it'll reset and go back to the regular screen. Now, since I've already done my update, I don't know that you're going to see that here, but we're going to give it a try. So I'm going to come back over here. I'm going to power up the USB. or connect the USB. There we go. You see a flash? There we go. That's what you're expecting. And you're going to watch that lower status bar and watch for it to fill and go all the way across. And that is updating to the new firmware, the 44.0. And this will take just a few seconds. And it's crucial that you do it in this order, or else you may have issues. Your controller is first, and I only copied the firmware for the controller onto the SD card. Didn't do them both at the same time. That's per their instructions. So we're going to get this one to upload. Then you've got to take the SD card back out of the machine, out of the controller here, and put it back in the USB thumb drive. Go back onto the thumb drive, and a minute ago you've seen that I copied over to it the file that was labeled firmware.bin. That was the name of it, firmware.bin. But when we go back over here and look at this after this upload completes, it's not going to be called that anymore. And you'll see in a second, I think both of them are called firmware.bin, and that's why you have to do them individually. So now I'll wait for this to completely come back up and power back on. There we go. Now I'm done. So now I'm going to power it back down. And then you press this in and it'll pop out. And then you can just pull that out, and it needs to go back into your USB thumb drive. And remember, the gold goes towards that clear ear. So with the gold, put that toward that clear ear, and this one does not have a snap and lock. You just need to push it in firmly till it bottoms out. That's in. Now you got to put it back in your PC. So excuse me. Alright, so that's back in. Computer's going to read it and populate my screen for me. Let me get it pulled up over here where you can see it. Let's see. Oh, no, there we go. There it comes. All right, now, this is how it opened up. And I want to show you, because remember it said firmware.bin. Now, oh, wrong one. It's calling it f_ok.bin. Well, we need to get rid of that. We don't need that anymore. It needs to go bye-bye. So you can just simply right-click and tell it to delete. Are you sure you want to delete this? Yes. Go away. Goodbye. Now I'm going to move this down here again, and I don't have to make it a half screen, because here is my F drive. This is my thumb drive. Up here are my downloads. So I'm just going to come over here, go back up to my download, go up a folder till I get to the motherboard firmware. Double click it, and you see it's named the same thing, firmware.bin. And that's why you have to do them individually. These they've in their super intelligent minds, they decided to name these exact same things. So if you bring them in at the same time, well, which one is which? You could do it and rename them. But if you renamed them, it may not do the automatic uploads. I would do it like they say to do it, one at a time. Delete the other, then bring the other one in, and then that's where we're at now. So I'm going to drag this one, which is the motherboard firmware version V44, and just left click and drag it down here to my thumb drive. It says copy to USB drive F, and release it. Now it's copied to my thumb drive. Eject it. Eject my thumb drive. I got an announcement at the bottom of the other screen. It says it's safe to remove. I've now got that in hand. So now I can take the micro SD card out of this again and put it in here for the firmware for the motherboard. But it doesn't go in the same place. And I'll show you, I can probably use their photographs. I can show you on my camera, but the photograph might be better. So go back here. So there it is. They've updated the board, the controller. Now you got to come down here. There you go. There is the back. There's your screw drive for the X-axis. So your spindle is mounted on these rods. That's the top right corner in the back of the machine. Your connections for the leveling and the fourth axis, and then there's a slot for the micro SD card right up there in the very top. So I need to pull out the micro SD card, and if you look at that picture, you can see the gold side of that is facing the left side of the machine, because these will only go in one way. So I'm going to pull this out of my USB thumb drive. Pay attention to which side the gold is on, and then I'm going to insert it into that slot on the back of my machine. And let's see if I can change. There we go, that might work. And let's change our zoom. Oh well, we're getting in there good and tight. All right, so wrong one. There we go. So there's my live machine. I've got the gold side of the micro SD card that's going to go toward the left, and I insert it in that top slot. Everything's still powered off. It's hard to see with the lights off. In fact, I need light. Okay. Well, no. I was trying to see if I had it oriented correctly. I believe I do. There we go. All right, now that one has the spring lock on it as well. So you push it in until you hear it click, and that's locked into place. So now that I've got that pushed in, it's clicked and locked in. Now I need to power the machine back on. I've got it unplugged, so I need to plug it back up. And I'm going to turn on the control board. The control board is just powering up. And and it's already started doing the update. Let me see if I can get you switched over there. See, there you go. I didn't even have to turn the machine on. All I had to do was just turn the power back on to the control board. And see, that's why I don't think I'm supposed to have power on the control board right now. But it's doing its update. Then once that's done, you're done with the Cubiko itself. The Cubiko will have updated the firmware on your control board and on the controller itself. So your offline controls work and the motherboard is updated. And I've already actually done this. I'm doing this for a second time just to show you how it works. Once I did the firmware update, all of the gremlins in my Cubiko were gone, except for this mysterious continuous power to the controller. I'm curious if you guys have the same problem or not. Put that in the feedback. Let me know down in the comments. Does your control board stay on all the time as long as your USB cable's powered up? But once you get this done, and it's almost complete, 99%, there we go. Now that's completely updated. So now I can come back up top and push the USB micro SD card, push it, that ejects it just so slightly, and then grab it, pull that out, and I would recommend, while you know it's there and you get rid of it, Put it back in your USB thumb drive. Remember, the gold side goes toward the middle of your USB drive. There's no snap lock on this one. Push it in nice and firm. Put it back in your USB port. Ugh. Once that's back in there, and this lights up, the end of it will light up. That little clear tab will actually power on and light up. That just lets you know that it's in and your computer's powering it. You're accessing that thumb drive. I would then go back in to that F drive, and you see it's changed the name of it again. It's that F_OK.bin. And I'm going to right click and delete. Yes, delete. Go away. And then eject. And then I get the message it's okay to remove it. Pull that thumb drive out. And place this back in your clamshell so you have it and you'll know where it's at when you need it again for the next firmware or the next upgrades. Put it back in your storage box. So that, boys and girls, is how you update the firmware on your Cubiko. Again, I'm curious, does everyone's controller stay on if the USB is powered or connected to your machine? Or am I waiting for a reply from Genmitsu saying, oh yeah, that's a problem, we need to do something? But most importantly, this fixed all of my gremlins with the issues of it not knowing where it's at. I no longer have to power my machine down. It goes where I tell it to, when I tell it to go there, and it doesn't go anywhere it's not supposed to, when it's not supposed to. So hopefully you found this informative. Hopefully you found it helpful with your Genmitsu. And oh, you know what? Let me show you how to tell what you've got. If you're going, well, I don't really have any problems. I don't know if I need to do the upgrade. Yeah, you probably do. If you're running 43.1 and you're not experiencing any problems, it's still probably a pretty good idea to upgrade the firmware. But I use MillMage, and let's see here. All right, I'm gonna scroll down to the bottom. So we'll try to, there we go. All right. So I have not used Candle or any of the other Gerbil senders, anything like that, Aspire or VCarve or anything, but I'm sure that they all have some type of control panel that allows you to see what the Gerbil is doing, what the console is doing. In MillMage, it's called the console. You go over to the console and you can hit $$ and enter, and it will show you all of the Gerbil values, all the dollar values. And it also will identify which firmware you're using in your Cubiko. So if I go back over here, let's see, here and here, and I've got my control panel opened up. And I come down here, it says type command, I go $$ and enter. And that's going to populate all the values of all of the dollar stuff. And in here, it will tell us the firmware. Where? There it is, right there. Version 4.4. Version V44. Now, before I did my upgrade, it said version V43.1. So that's how you identify which firmware you're currently using. And even if you're not experiencing the gremlins, I strongly recommend you do this firmware upgrade. It'll make sure they never pop up and you don't have any problems. So hopefully this was informative. It was helpful. It should have been a really, really easy to follow along, step-by-step firmware upgrade for your Cubiko. So once again, I'm Steve, Hobo with Wood Chips. Be sure you have liked, share, and subscribe to this channel for tons of information on using your Cubiko and MillMage. I'm focusing on using the MillMage software. and I'm sharing my learning experiences and my learning curves through this entire thing. I'm new to CNCs. MillMage is brand new. I don't know what I'm doing. MillMage is still figuring some of the things out. So it's going to be an interesting and fun journey for all of us, I hope. So I'm Steve, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.